Hello everyone. Now as we know, Christmas is looked upon as being a happy time. Families come together, Christmas trees, Christmas lights, Christmas carols, presents. So it's generally looked upon as being a very happy time for a lot of people, but not for everyone. For the Watkins family, it seemed that Christmas was going to be very bleak. Things weren't going right at all, until something happened that changed all of that. So this is the story of the Golden Buddha. Now Tom Watkins was thoroughly fed up with life. 3 days to go to Christmas and he was flat broke. He had tried to get a job so that he could earn a few pounds to give his family a good Christmas. But after 6 days packing shelves at Asda, he was sacked for bad timekeeping. The £100 that he received in wages was not nearly enough to pay debts that he owed. His wife had told him to forget them until after Christmas and to concentrate on stocking up with food and presents for their only daughter, Karen, who had just turned 11 years of age. Her heart was set on buying a new dress she had seen to wear when she sang in the school choir at the local church on Christmas Eve. She had the voice to do this, but only a tatty dress to wear that was months old. Tom had even tried the Social Security, but they could do nothing until after Christmas, and even then, what they offered was a mere pittance. So he eventually decided to take his wife's advice and was now on his way to buy the dress and the food. It was nearly 5 o'clock and the town was cloaked in darkness. As he walked down the high street, something in a shop window caught his eye. It was a Buddha, a magnificent golden Buddha. The way it glinted in the street lighting made his spirits soar. All his doubts about life just faded away. There was something special, magical there. And what a coincidence. It was exactly £100. Tom had a strong feeling that this Buddha would bring them all the luck that they needed. The shopkeeper confirmed his hopes by telling him that this particular Buddha was 500 years old, and legends were told about its mystical powers. It had been known to cure incurable diseases and bring fame and fortune and wealth to its owners. Tom was convinced and handed his money across the counter. The wife will be pleased, he thought. Now Tom and his wife had put aside a miniature bottle of brandy for the festive season. It took the whole of that to bring his wife round after he had given her the news. But Hilda, he said, this will bring us good luck. The shopkeeper told me it represented an emancipated being. Look at it, his wife cried. It's grotesque. Look at its face. It looks more constipated than emancipated. You've been done. It's just a brass monstrosity. Try telling your Karen that you brought a brass monstrosity instead of the dress that she wants for Christmas. But this Buddha can help us, I'm sure of it. It can help us solve our rent problems, I know. The only way that it can help us, his wife fumed, is if you take it up in your bedroom and when the rent man comes, drop it on his head. With that, she stormed out of the room. By now, Tom was starting to have his own doubts. It had looked attractive in the shop window, but now it seemed tarnished and purely constructed. It was now starting to look like an 8-inch high monstrosity, as his wife had said. He became even more depressed when his daughter returned home from her friends and heard the news. She tried to throttle the statue and would have thrown it through the telly had Tom not prevented her. She ran up to her room and sobbed uncontrollably. His wife also had tears in her eyes. No food, no dress, no Christmas, she wept. At last Tom had to give in. Okay, he sighed. I'll take it back now. It was just starting to snow as he made his way back to the curio shop. But when he got there, it was locked, and a sign on the door said, "Closed for Christmas. Reopen January 2nd. Tom's heart sank. He looked closer at the Buddha he was carrying and realised his mistake. He had been brainwashed into wasting his money. It was as ugly as sin. The face almost mocked his plight. Is this the Buddha of compassion that legends tell of? He whispered to himself. Then he had a flash of inspiration. Perhaps he could sell it to someone on the street as a late present. The dress that Karen wanted was £35. If he sold it for 50, then he would still have a little left for some food. So he stopped passers-by and showed them his Buddha. But all of them remarked on its ugliness and said that it would frighten the kids. So on he went, past the brightly lit church where the Christmas carols sounded to his ears like dirges. He walked on further and further, but still he had no luck. At last he sat down on a bench in the local park, determined to gather snow where he sat and die as a snowman. It was at this moment that he heard a rustling sound in the snow and looked up to see a tiny form approaching him. It was a little girl, about Karen's age. She was shivering and barefooted. She saw Tom and looked at him with beautiful but sad blue eyes. "Homeless and hungry, can you spare a few pence?" she asked pleadingly. At first he thought, what kind of parents would send a young girl out on the streets in this kind of weather to do their dirty work? But then he remembered his own folly and stopped his condemnation there and then. "I'm sorry," he said to her. "I have absolutely nothing to give you." But then he looked at the Buddha and something touched him deeply. Selfish thoughts rushed through his head though. "I'd better keep this and take it back on January 2nd. What if this little girl is a con artist? What if she really lives in a big house somewhere?" Then he looked into the girl's eyes and all his doubts just melted away. I don't know if this will be of any use to you," he said, as he gave her the much maligned object. "Oh, it is wonderful," the girl gasped, "and such a lovely face." Tom laughed out loud. "You're the only person who ever said that. The face is grotesque. Just look at the..." He was struck speechless all at once. For when the girl turned the face of the Buddha towards him, it had the most beautiful smile imaginable. "Thank you," the little girl cried. "I just know it will bring us luck. It's the best and most beautiful present I have ever had." If the smile of the Buddha was lovely, it was more than matched by the expression on the girl's face as she thanked him before running off into the darkness. Tom made his way back home very slowly and thoughtfully. Everything was somehow different. The people that he passed seemed happier, and the choir in the church had suddenly taken on the voices of angels. But even in the midst of all this, his thoughts were not entirely unselfish. "If I could find the girl again," he mused, "I could take the Buddha back off her. I would surely sell it now that the expression has changed. Then I could give the girl a couple of pounds to keep her happy." But he finally decided against this, as he was sure it would return to its sullen mood when he touched it. Besides, the look on the girl's face was well worth the sacrifice. He was rather worried as he reached his front door. What would his wife and daughter say now that they had nothing at all? It was his fault, and he would have to take the consequences. He would have to face the music. Imagine his surprise when he was greeted by a smiling family. Look, Daddy," his daughter shouted in excitement. We've got the money." But how?" Tom started. "Well," his wife interrupted, "the postman knocked on the door just half an hour ago and apologised for forgetting to give us this letter. You remember the tax rebate you received a few weeks ago? Well, they calculated it wrongly, and so they've sent us a cheque for £175. Now we can get Karen's dress and have plenty left to have a good Christmas." Needless to say, he was quickly forgiven for his recent folly. "But how can we exchange the cheque for cash now, so late?" Tom asked. "Already done," his wife beamed. "Mrs. Wilkins from the grocer's was kind enough to help us out." She seemed in a better mood than usual too. So Karen got her dress in the end. She looked lovely and sung beautifully at the school concert on Christmas Eve. In her new white dress, she was just like a Christmas angel. Over the last couple of days, Tom had learned some very deep lessons. Perhaps the Buddha had helped him in its own way. He was tempted to come out with clichés like, "Christmas is more than just money." But looking at his wife and child and the people around him, he satisfied himself with the thought that they knew that somehow deep down. And how could he tell such a thing to the young homeless girl? Tom did not see the Buddha again, but a few weeks later he was walking through the town centre when he saw a cheerful-faced little girl, whom he recognised as the girl in the park. But now she was dressed presentably and looked much happier. She noticed Tom and crossed over to him. "You are the man who gave me the Buddha," she said. "Thank you so much. You know, shortly after that my dad got a job and we can just about manage now. We've got a flat and food. That's all we need, really. But I was so interested in the Buddha that I bought books about Buddhism and went to the library and learned a lot about life and things. I gave the statue to a friend of my mum's who was fed up and depressed. I just hope it can help her to find happiness. But I think we shouldn't rely too much on things like statues. Their magic dies after a while. The only magic that doesn't die is in our very own hearts. That's what I think, anyway. Thanks, mister. Thanks for giving us a chance. We'll meet again. Bye for now." Tom was amazed at the wisdom in the mind of a child. And did not Jesus say that we have to become as little children to enter the kingdom of heaven? Tom pondered all this later as he sat in the library, reading his books on Buddhism. From then on he started to read about all the world's religions and began to discern a common thread. Yes, the finding of the Buddha had certainly started a chain of events that promised to lead to new and exciting discoveries about the mysteries of life. The shopkeeper was right. The Buddha does bring its owner's wealth. But they are the true riches that lie within the heart and the soul of every one of us, of the whole of mankind. These riches do not die or fade, but actually grow stronger as time passes and bring us closer together as human beings. What more can we need than that? Thank you for listening. See you next time.